Reader did share his recordings as well. So obviously, guys, the reminder is to also look at those past papers. I think for me, those past papers and the questions in the past papers are always going to be non-negotiable. So in terms of the exam prep, you will recall from last week or whenever this happened, there were some non-negotiables. The non-negotiables are the things that you need to study first and are the things that you need to study last. So just to get to my slides. So in terms of the non-negotiables are these, guys. So I guarantee with as much certainty as humanly possible that with as much certainty as possibility that this is going to be there, guys. So the first non-negotiable, guys, is this. If we look here, it's Porter's generic strategies. And you'll remember from last week, I referred you guys to this slide here. So this slide is slide 31, non-negotiable. So if we look at the exam brief in terms of the companies they gave us in the exam brief, and also just remember, guys, there are going to be red herrings in this. So these are companies that, yeah, they've used in other modules, they've used last year, etc. So the first one is Amazon, guys. So I think the first one, when we look at what Amazon is giving us in the marketplace in 2024, so it is about the e-commerce space, etc. We also, I read this week that for any import from Shein now, there will be an automatic 45% tax levy on the import or import duty paid, which is going to take Shein out of that market. It's a way of protecting local business. So in terms of Amazon, the moment you see highly competitive prices, you know that it's going to have a cost leadership component in it. However, I think this is, if you think of the prime, it's this stuff here, the full suite of benefits, the 1 day free, 1 day service, all of that. So what it means is that in essence, we have the uniqueness there as well. So for me, when I think of that, and I will mark whatever I can justify, whatever you can explain, guys. So when I think of that, you can go with low cost provider. I have to give marks for that. You can go with differentiation, although I think initially it might be a niche thing. But when you combine the two, I really think that Amazon is that. So please be careful. Please definitely stay away from going to any of the focus ones for that, because it's not a focus strategy. They are here to leave a massive footprint. So please remember, in terms of the Amazon discussions, and you will see this, guys, my suggestion is go with best cost provider. I will mark low cost provider. I will mark broad differentiation if they talk about prime, okay, only prime. But in my mind, please go for best cost provider. And the truth is, I would not care what the memo says. I mark what I can see that you've justified. So that's the first non-negotiable. The second non-negotiable, and I'm going to stay with this Amazon, guys, and when we look at the first two, they both Amazon, I think, as I can recall. So I obviously would know that this is the other non-negotiable. The second non-negotiable, guys, will be Porter's 5 forces. So if we see Amazon, you will know immediately that obviously they are a new entrant, but they now past that stage. If we did this 2 years ago, we would have suggested they might be new entrants. But at this stage, they're in South Africa, so they've entered into a competitive market. So in terms of existing competitors, you know who they are. It's one day only. It is Takealot, which is their biggest competitor. It's loot.co.za. And then obviously we need to remember the Timus of the world, the Sheins of the world, the wish.coms of the world, etc. So when you do that Porter's five forces analysis, and when we think of Porter's five forces, so immediately we're looking at your where oh no, what am I doing, guys? Am I now getting confused between first and second semester? I'm getting confused between first and second semester. My apologies. Completely ignore what I've just bloody said about Porter's five forces. I've done so many workshops. What, however, is going to be there, guys, is this. This is the second non-negotiable. Your lecturer is an idiot, guys. You can put that down in my evaluation. I can't get myself clear between 7321 and 7322. So the first non-negotiable is the generic strategy. The second non-negotiable is the corporate strategy that they've adopted. So if we look at this list of corporate strategies, and obviously all of these here, you'll see unpack the specific definitions and descriptions of those. The truth is, from a Amazon global perspective, they have done market development. They've arrived in a new market, and their focus is going to be around making sure that they establish a footprint. There's going to be lots of specials, there's going to be lots of offers, there's going to be lots of options available. They're not doing this stuff. So when you discuss Amazon, guys, you're not discussing in that area. You are discussing here. It is a market development option that they are following. Okay, they've not bought any suppliers, they've not done anything. My discussion would be market development. And if we look at market development, obviously there are the discussions there. They're not diversifying, they're developing into the South African market. So those two are the first two non-negotiables. If you don't mind, I'm going to go through each of the other case studies in terms of those two non-negotiables, because the third non-negotiable, no, those are the two non-negotiables at this stage. I'll come back to the others that we need to look at. The next one that we're looking at, guys, is this idea of Telkom appointing delivery to the delivery cost speed to township deliveries, etc. So we know that Telkom definitely, in terms of their generic strategy, is always going to be a sort of low-cost provider, but not so much low cost. But by doing this, they're trying to differentiate themselves in the township. So you immediately are defaulting to there, and you're talking about broad differentiation. I think it is expanding their market. It is also a way of market development. They expanding into new markets, and that certainly would fall into that. In terms of the next one in the non-negotiables, guys, yeah, this one, Threads app. So if we look at the Threads app, I think that initially they are focused around differentiation. But when we look at the numbers, guys, again, it talks specifically about the footprint they're trying to achieve. So for me, it would firstly be differentiation, but there will be a cost element to it. So whether you describe it differentiation or best cost, I will mark both. But the one that is more likely to resonate in terms of what the memo will say, guys, is this here, because they are unique. They are setting up something that's there. And you can see 500 characters, so they are better on the base of that than, I suppose, Twitter, and they also, they have a unique combination of things in terms of their product offering. If you were to answer the question on the idea of the generic strategy. I would go differentiation. In terms of corporate strategy, when we go back to these slides here, you, without a shadow of a doubt, are either looking at product development. If you argued related diversification, related diversification. If you look at related diversification, it really is. They're using the same technology to expand into a new industry. My feel to it is that I would go with related diversification, but depending on how they ask the question, I would also mark product development. Okay, guys, but initially go diversification. You guys need to stop me if you disagree with me. Okay. So the strategy or the generic strategy, and don't confuse generic strategies. Those are those Porter stuff. These are the corporate strategies. Those are the non-negotiables for that one there. Pepcore, yeah. I've got a feeling this is an old case study. But having said that, guys, so if we look at what Pepcore is, it is a low-cost strategy. If you've ever shopped at Pep, you will know that it is a low-cost strategy, and everything they do in terms of Pep is a low-cost strategy. They've not given us enough to work on, and I somehow have a feeling that this is a red herring. But they could, for example, ask the question, what strategy would it entail if Pepcore decided to add into it the selling of pet products, etc.? And then you will know that it is related to diversification because the technology is the same. Or if they all of a sudden start advertising significantly to increase their market share, you will remember that it will be these sort of organic growth strategies where market saturation hasn't been achieved yet. So you'll look at market penetration, which is about advertising, but also, when economy gets tight, they could become fit for purpose, which is consolidation. And I hate doing this because truthfully, I always end up looking like somebody who's clueless, but I think that's the red herring. But watch them ask us the red herring question. Yeah, and then Takealot and Superbalist. So if we look at Takealot, again, guys, Takealot is about uniqueness. It's about differentiation. But I would honestly prefer if you described it as a best cost strategy. I will mark both. They're not low cost because there's enough uniqueness. With them, for example, taking over Superbalist, the question might be there that, and I just want to open that there. Oh my gosh, sorry, that is another workshop that I literally just walked out of. The truth is that when we look at what's happened to Superbalist, you can argue, guys, that it's market development, product development, but I think related diversification. I think if you want to if you want to be safe and you have a lot to write, you would go market development and say that it was a friendly acquisition. Okay, but because it's also a form of horizontal integration where you take over your competitors. But the main one would be, I am going to say market development with that element there where there is a friendly acquisition. Okay, but was it a merger, Chuma? I'm pretty sure it wasn't a merger, was it? Did they describe it in here as a merger? No, it's not a merger, boy. I'm very, very sure that Takealot bought Superbalist. Okay, but what does it say in here? I'm very sure it's not a merger. So yeah, it's differentiation, it's uniqueness. Remember that. Well, it was, no. acquisition of Superblis, don't say merger. It's definitely not merger. Okay. Right. So that covers the two generic for each of those. Those are non-negotiable. I would work out answers on the basis of each of those case studies. I would know this very, very well. Those two non-negotiables. Guys, what I then said is what we have to do, and you still have to study everything, and that's not going to change, is that we have to look at and here it is. I can frustrate myself so much sometimes, guys. Um, I had shoved it under something else. So this is the sets of questions from past papers. So in terms of these, guys, you need to have a glance at these questions here because they are likely to ask you similar questions. What I can guarantee is that they will ask you questions on, and this is a guarantee, guys, you will get a question on each of the learning units. I have sent it, Clarissa. I'll send it again. It was sent to the group. So in terms of this, yeah, you are very likely to see very similar questions. So in terms of the fact that they will ask each of the questions, I'm going to go through and I will put it on the group again. I'm going to go through each of the learning units to try and give you a sense of what potentially will be there, guys. So that is there. Which one is that? Okay, for some reason, I've got it in PDF as well. I don't know what is happening in my life at the moment. I'm a little bit nuts in terms of being busy. So if we go through each of the learning units, the important bits. So those questions you need to know the answers to because they love using the same questions. So if we look here, in terms of business level strategy, you are likely to get identify one of those. They could throw in a curveball, guys, and ask you to do this one here. They normally ask it in an assignment, but they can also ask you to evaluate those strategies. Remember, just focus on the appropriate slide. I don't need to see any of that stuff there. You would look at feasibility. So appropriate does it that it fits in with the business in terms of its overall plans and strategies and culture, etc. It fits with the sort of purpose of the organization. Feasibility, that they have enough finances to do it. Desirability is about, not exposing the organization to risk. Consistency is the idea that you have congruence, that there is a logic in your decisions, that everything fits together with everything else. So if you're Mercedes, you're not all of a sudden going to launch a cost leadership option, okay? And then validity, and it's about the calculations we based it on. So for example, Take a Lot taking over Superbalist, they would know what the potential customer base for Superbalist is out there. My apologies, guys. I'm guzzling coffee as well. Those are the two non-negotiables from that chapter or learning unit. The non-negotiables for this one we've discussed. Okay. Strategic innovation. If you look at the past questions, you'll see a couple of questions that have come up. This to me is one of the most difficult ones to try and predict because they could literally ask anything here, from red ocean to blue ocean. Now, I would look, and please don't worry about that. If they ask these theories, I would be very surprised because it would be a first. Be careful that they don't ask dominant design. Dominant design is where you have a standard in an industry. So a USB is a USB is a USB. So in terms of that kind of connectivity, the dominant design is USB. So for example, and I would have shared with you guys this previously, when Sony launched Blu-ray, they made that the dominant design in HD by essentially allowing other brands to have access to it. Absorptive capacity, it's the ability to take in new information and adjust your belief systems about the world. And adaptive capacity, that it's the ability to stay relevant. Look at the questions that relate to Learning Unit 2. That one is difficult to predict, guys. So look at the past questions. They are likely to ask the same questions. Corporate level strategy, we've done. This one here is also very, very difficult. In the assignment, they gave us this, the drivers of globalization. I'm a bit iffy about that. The reasons why we go global, a little bit iffy about that, guys. If they want to be really nice, they ask us to do a macro environmental analysis at a global level. So you have to know your pestle factors. So if they are nice, they'll ask you to do a global analysis at a macro level. I yeah, see if they're past questions, but they normally ask that in first semester, and that's why I veered away from that fairly rapidly. But it is here that they could ask you to do a macro environmental. If they ask you this, guys, you can't mess that up. Let me just remind myself. Let me look at the bits that I gave, the exam prep. Let's just see. Yeah, this is okay. Yeah, we did do that, and you can listen to the other. Growth strategy is fine. We've discussed that. Currently, drivers of globalization. So they've asked drivers of globalization, and that's a theoretical answer, and it is in there, guys. The second one, that if we look at that, so international strategy, this is the one that I always default to, thinking that this is where they're going to go. In terms of the international strategy, it is this here. My apologies. It's that combination of how much are we concerned about keeping costs low and bowing to cost pressures, and that's obviously economies of scale, etc. Sorry, guys, I'm now really being unprofessional. I'm having cappuccino. And then also, how much do we customize for a local area? So in terms of that, guys, when you are heavily focused on economies of scale and cost saving, but you also allow your items to be to be customized per region, you're always going to adopt a transnational strategy. So if you think an apple is an apple is an apple, but they allow with the software in it for you to they allow with, I don't know, let's maybe not use, let's say, the entry-level Samsungs. They allow you to adjust the time setting, the value of the currency, the metrics, etc., so that they have a transnational strategy. In terms of global strategy, so here, it's irrespective of what you manufacture, everyone uses the same thing. You can almost argue T-shirts might fall into that one. Because there are high cost pressures in terms of that. A multi-domestic strategy, guys. So here we don't have issues. It's going to cost more. So the focus is very much around making things unique to a particular area, customizing. And then if you're here, you adopt an international strategy, because you can sell expensive, and you sell expensive, but in a way that essentially people will all use the same thing, irrespective of the region that they come from. The descriptions are there. Have a glance at those, guys. Right. See here, they threw a curveball. They did the mode of entry. it's potentially possible that they will do the mode of entry, but it's one of those. It's but there's no there's never a guarantee with this, guys. Um, Hold on a second. Can I show you here? These are the different modes of entry. So in terms of non-equity mode, so you don't actually set up capital in a specific new region, but you've got options. You can do exporting, you can license people, you can franchise, um, you can form strategic alliances with local companies where they'll market your products. And then equity modes is where there's a foreign direct capital investment. So you purchase and you own an entire subsidiary. So you set up a business that will manufacture and distribute, etc. Greenfield is when you go into an area that you had never been in before. You start from scratch. You start literally laying the bricks in the factory, and you build your own factory. Acquisitions is buying existing businesses, and then yeah, you can see some of the others there. The descriptions are there. If we look at these again, guys, yeah, the other one, this one is again a bit of a pain, but I think see the past questions, and this is obviously the next learning unit. In terms of strategic leadership, there are a couple of non-negotiables here, guys. The first one is that one there. They sometimes will ask you to write very briefly about all eight. The problem with that is that it's a heck of a lot to write in a short period of time. Remember, they are going to ask either 7 or 6 questions, so you will not have more than 15 minutes a question. And the feedback from my students who wrote test for BMNG 7321 this year is that they all ran out of time. So you need to be able to write very rapidly. What they sometimes do is they will ask you the difference between strategic leadership, visionary leadership, and then also transformational leadership. So that is an important one, guys. The last one that they sometimes will ask is this element here. But please look at what is being asked previously. So it's from this slide here. They will ask you this question here. In order to develop and communicate or to manage change management, these are the steps. So be very, very careful of this one. But look at the past questions, see what they've asked, try and understand that theory. And then, yeah, knowledge, skills, and attitude. So immediately when you see that, we know we're looking at organizational architecture. In terms of organizational architecture, there is so much they can ask you here. So they can ask from anywhere from there to there. So the key thing in terms of this model is that you read it in reverse. They can ask you who your stakeholders are. You should know by now who your internal and external stakeholders are, those you're in second semester, third year. Your capabilities would be those things that allow us to turn our resources into products, into a competitive advantage. Processes are those things we use to create value. Structure is the organizational reporting structure. Knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Those are the sort of abilities and competencies of people. The use of technology in terms of how we integrate software and hardware, and the organizational culture, which again, they could ask you, which way does culture manifest itself? It is the personality of the organization. It's the way we dress. It's the way we interact. It's the things that we concern ourselves with. So if we look here, and I realize that you have a lot of studying to do, guys. You need to look at each of those sets of questions. You need to look at each of those sets of questions and see what the trend and the pattern is. The non-negotiables, we know what those are. We know what the non-negotiables are. You should get full marks for those. But you can see that there's certain trends and patterns. So here they've asked stakeholders. Here the sort of the way culture is expressed. It's a nasty, guys. It's a lot of studies, and you're in a really, really unpleasant position because you are the first group of people that since COVID is writing a sit-down exam. Having said that, I am completely unfussed because I honestly think you guys have enough to do really well. So the strategy from here is know the non-negotiables, look at these questions, work out answers to them, know them off by heart. But the headache is you have to study absolutely everything, guys. So here are the questions. Know your non-negotiables, and then work out answers here. But ultimately, you have to study everything. I wish I could do better than that, guys, but my crystal ball turned out to be a snow globe. So I can't help more than that. And that's possibly the weakest joke you'll hear this year. My predictions are murky. Any questions at this stage? I know that I've gone a lot quicker, guys. The problem is I know some people have to leave for another class. Chuma, anything from your side? But Clarissa, enigiets van jou kant af? Hannah, anything? Hendrik, enigiets van jou kant af? Rochelle, you okay, but Steph's, you okay? Okay. Then, you okay? I hope so, boy. I was so scared I'm wasting your time. Zwido, thank you for jumping in and helping today, guys. But yeah, I'm glad. Hey. Ag, die lange Clarissa. Is jy nie Afrikaans nie, Clarissa? Daar's sekere dinge wat duidelik is. Okay, you go and do your finance. For the rest of the guys, thank you for making my life easy, guys. I absolutely love this class, and I am 100% certain you guys are fine. Right? Let me know how the exam went, and immediately after leaving the exam, I'd like to know how you guys did. Apologies about losing last week's. Well, not losing, the stupid thing not downloading. I will make sure that it doesn't happen this